Todd Garland was home. 3 years ago, he left Tylersville to go to Hollywood, California. He was an unusually handsome young man of 22. It's the same old story that happens time and time again in small towns all across the country. People say to someone, "You're good looking enough to be in the movies. Why you're wasting your time here, I'll never know." Well, most people shrug it off with, "Oh, go on, I am not." But not Todd Garland. He knew he was handsome. He knew it when he was a little tyke. He knew it because people would fuss over him all the time. At the ice cream parlor, he'd get an extra scoop of strawberry ice cream when everybody else got just what they paid for. And he was teacher's pet. He sat right in front and got special privileges. The teacher would always call on Todd to pull down the maps over the blackboard, and when it was time to go home, Todd was always the first in line. Yeah, Todd was a very popular boy with everyone. Everyone, that is, except old Mrs. Corey, who lived alone in a dark, old, crumbling house on Maple Street. Todd had to go down Maple Street to get home. Old Mrs. Corey's husband, long since gone, was the founder of Corey's Wax Museum, which had now been closed to the public. Todd would go by the museum many times to and from school, on his way to the movies. And each time he would stop and gaze into the dusty, cobweb-laden window at some of the remaining famous wax figures. Most of the faces had melted out of proportion from the heat, but Todd could remember which were which. The heavy one over there in the corner. Its nose was down where the chin was. One of the eyes had slithered grotesquely down its cheek, and the other one just sort of fell inside its own head, leaving a large, gaping hole. This misshapen, monstrous-looking thing looks as though it could have been out of a science fiction story, but no. Before the museum was closed down, shortly after Mr. Corey's death, Todd remembered it as Oliver Hardy. He would think, as he often had in the past,
"Gosh, someday I wish I'd become a big movie star. People would really take notice then."
And then the thought would vanish because now it was time for some fun. The Garlands were a very well-to-do family and lived in a very respectable house on Chutney Hill. Each day Todd would go through the alley behind Mrs. Corey's house and peek through a large hole in her tall, uneven wooden fence. If Mrs. Corey was in the yard, Todd would sneak down to the gate, which he knew was always open. Mrs. Corey left it open for the gas man, garbage men, and such. She was much too old to be coming out every time and opening the gate for everyone. Spunky knew who was welcome and who wasn't. Spunky was Mrs. Corey's aging, practically toothless dog. It was sort of difficult to trace Spunky's ancestry, so let's just say Spunky was a plain old dog. Todd would sneak to the gate now and, with a mighty push, leap into the yard and scream,
"Hi, old witch! You can't catch me! Nya, 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 nya."
She would turn with a start, and Spunky would, with all his dwindling strength, get to his feet and charge at Todd. Todd stood his ground. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid because he knew just how much rope old Spunky had. Spunky would go full force at Todd and, as always, stop with a jerk just short of Todd. As the rope grew taut and twanged at the strain, Todd would throw his head back and laugh as old Spunky would be pulled back and thrown to the ground. Mrs. Corey would holler,
Get out! Get out, Todd Garland! Get out of my yard!
Todd would turn and leave, still shaking with laughter. And then Mrs. Corey would go to Spunky and pat his old head as he still stunned and coughing and gasping, laid in the dirt. She would think to herself as she loosened the rope around Spunky's throat.
I'll skin that little rascal one of these days.
Well, school was almost out for the summer. In fact, there was one remaining day. One day for the pupils to go and get their report cards and have their friends sign their autograph books. Todd wasn't real popular with the boys. Oh, he had his close chums, all right. Douglas and Billy Myers, who happened to live next door to Todd, and whose father just happened to own the one and only movie house in Tylerville. Now, the Myers were, like the Garlands, a very well-to-do family. The Myers brothers weren't as good-looking as Todd, but they were spoiled just like him, thus making three of a kind. That day, Doug Myers had good news to tell Todd. The three of them were being treated at the Dad's Theater. 2 westerns, 2 cartoons, popcorn, candy, soda pop, the works. School let out. Instead of the regular left turn at the corner, Todd would today turn right towards town. As he stood at the corner waiting for the light, he glanced down towards old Mrs. Corey's house. He thought as he chuckled,
Today is not just a very special day for me, but a special day for Mrs. Corey. Today I'll leave her alone.
He broke out in a wild fit of laughter as the light turned green. He crossed the street and put one foot on the curb, and the other one he left in the street, anxiously waiting for it to start him off down Main Street to the Myers Theater. As he was walking down Main Street, admiring himself in the store windows, he stopped. He backed up, thinking that he had seen old Mrs. Corey in the hardware store. He pressed his face to the large glass window on Mr. Dolan's hardware store, and sure enough, there she was. He couldn't see what she was buying, and he really didn't care. He was thinking of what he could do. Let me see. Maybe I can roll a brand new shiny galvanized steel garbage can in front of her. Or maybe drop one of Mr. Dolan's guaranteed double mesh heavy duty fishnets on her when she comes out. Whatever, it would never come about. For at that instant he heard Doug and Billy Myers down the street.
What admiring yourself in the window? The car job's about to start.
And Todd ran down the street with all thoughts of Mrs. Corey completely gone. As the last Indian was biting the dust and the last empty popcorn box hit the floor, the three were ready to leave. Todd saw Mr. Myers at the box office and thanked him in the rehearsed speech his mother and father had pounded into him that morning before school. He was somewhat stuffed and uncomfortable as he passed by the hardware store. The hardware store. Mrs. Corey. She never goes out. But Todd was dead sure it was her he saw earlier. Maybe she's feeling a lot better. Maybe she feels good enough for a little fun. It's not right, thought Todd. That she feels good and I'm so uncomfortable. Belly hurts like all get out. If she feels that good, I'll pay her a visit. I wasn't gonna, but just not right. Her, an old lady, feeling good, and me hurting like the devil. Todd was peeking through the big hole in her fence now. He saw Spunky laying there at the end of his rope, but he didn't see old Mrs. Corey. But Todd knew as soon as he burst into his howl, she'd be out. Todd opened the gate and walked in. He stopped at the spot he always stops at, right at the wooden sidewalk's beginning. Then he saw a light. The door opened, and he saw old Mrs. Corey with a faint smile on her face. She just stood there. So did Todd. Spunky was looking at his mistress as if waiting for the command. Suddenly, Todd threw his arms in the air.
Hi, old witch, can't catch me. Nyan, 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 nyan.
That was Spunky's signal. He painstakingly pulled himself to his feet and charged at Todd. As usual, Todd threw his head back and started to laugh. But it then occurred to him that he didn't hear that familiar twang as the rope stretched out its full length. Possessed by fear, Todd jerked his head upright, only to see Spunky hurling himself at Todd's face. It was too late to throw up his arms. Spunky's few remaining teeth found their mark. They dug into Todd's face the way a soda jerk scoop tears through ice cream. Todd turned and he ran out of the yard, screaming at the top of his lungs. And as he was running home, gripping his bleeding, torn face, he thought, how could a dog get at me? Was I too close? Was it too dark and I misjudged? Then as Todd was nearing home, he knew why Mrs. Corey was at the hardware. She had bought an extra length of rope, an extra couple of feet, just enough to allow Spunky to get at him. The next day, the wealthy and influential Garland family showed up at old Mrs. Corey. There was an officer. Old Mrs. Corey pleaded with the officer as they were tying old Spunky's feet together. She screamed that it wasn't Spunky's fault. It was Todd's fault. He teased Spunky most every day. And as she pleaded, Spunky looked up at the man standing on top of him with sad, droopy eyes, as if to say, have I done wrong? The officer stood up. Spunky made a desperate but futile attempt to bite at the ropes. The officer drew his shiny .38 police special from its holster. Spunky struggled to get up. The sound of the pistol sort of echoed in the distance. Mrs. Corey stopped pleading. Spunky stopped struggling. It was all over. Everything was quiet except...
It teaches you right, you old witch. You should have never let your old dog get me anyhow.
Todd's father said,
Aren't you satisfied yet?
But Dad...
Get in the car.
and as the big black shiny Lincoln backed out of the alley, old Mrs. Corey knelt down and touched Spunky as if she were not quite sure that Spunky were really dead. That all happened 13 years ago. And today, Todd Garland, movie star, is back home. Tylerville's sure proud of their hometown boy making the big time. His parents were proud as could be, saying, well, we don't know why everyone is carrying on so. You'd think they were surprised or something. Folks should have known our Todd would make it, him being so handsome and all. That was Mrs. Garland speaking, boasting. Mr. Garland was proud, sure, but he wasn't cramming it down Tylerville's throat. A party was in order, and who would be better suited to throw the party but Todd's old school chums and boyhood friends, Doug and Billy Myers. The party took place at Doug Myers' mansion. You see, Doug and Billy took over their father's theater and eventually wound up owning a long chain of theaters. Lincolns, Caddies, and a few scattered Buicks rolled up the winding driveway to the Myers mansion. And now the party was underway. Right from the start, the party got off on a sour note. Ronald Jarvis's wife, who had a few martinis before arriving at the party, started making goo-goo eyes at Todd. Ronald Jarvis, being a respectable Tylerville lawyer, didn't say too much at the beginning. But a couple of hours later, his wife was nowhere to be seen. Strangely enough, Todd was nowhere to be found either. They were discovered later at the bathhouse beside the pool, getting ready for a midnight dip. Ronald became furious, screaming,
Big deal. Big movie star thinks he's playing one of his romantic leads.
"Take it
If
easy,
your parents hadn't patched your face up so pretty when you were a punk, you'd just be another Tylerville bum. Big movie star, huh?
All right, Ronnie, you want some trouble with me?
Yeah, I want some trouble with
All right,
you.
wait, hold it.
Okay, you want it? That's it.
Doug and Billy Myers came and separated them. Ronald and his wife left the party.
Get him away from me or I'll kill him.
The other people were still dancing, having a ball. The three went to the bar. Todd, Doug, and Billy. The nerve of that low-class jerk. You got a nerve.
Okay, forget it.
Pour me a drink, will you, Doug? Come on, let's get this party going, huh? Let's do something exciting.
Come on, people, what's the matter with you? All you deadheads? Let's do something, huh?
Some of the people started drifting out, leaving the party. And eventually, there were just the three, Doug and Billy and Todd. They kept a trio of musicians to play while they were drinking.
Hey, come on. You play up, huh? Play up a little bit, baby. That's it, boy.
That's better, right?
Hey, what can we do? A little bit different, huh? Oh, I got an idea.
Something a little
Let's
different.
play,
Little
let's,
different,
have a
maybe.
scavenger hunt, huh?
What do you mean,
Scavenger. You know, what do you mean? You get a list, and I get a list, and Billy gets the list, and we go to houses, knock on the door, and see if we can collect them, huh?
I'll write it
Down.
Sounds good.
Okay, now you write down here. You take this one, and you take this one.
They each went their separate way. Todd drifted down to where old Mrs. Corey used to live. He was wondering, I wonder if the house is still there. So he goes down. Sure enough, the house was still there. He recalled when he was a youth how he used to go in the alley in the back and pester old Mrs. Corey. So he went around to the back. The fence was almost all the way tore down. The gate was hanging by one hinge. He walked in. He could see nothing. What was that? Todd looked at the old house. The door had opened. It must have been the wind. Of course. What was that? Thought he'd heard something. He approached the house, went in the door. Everything was hanging in dark shadows. He walked a little further. He bumped into one of the old wax figures. Then he heard it again. What was it? Couldn't. Of course not. How silly. Mrs. Corey was an old hag at that time. She had to be dead years ago. Then he saw a figure that he thought was a wax figure. Wonder what this one was.
Todd Garland?
No.
You remember me?
You're dead.
Oh, Mrs. Corey.
You have to be dead. It was years ago.
You remember Todd?
What?
You had spunky cure.
It was an accident. Mrs. Corey. Wait.
I said,
Don't.
have you scared?
Well, now wait. Mrs. Corey.
I always wanted to be famous in my wax museum.
No, wait. Don't.
Come here.
Later, Doug and Billy, worrying because Todd hadn't shown up for a couple of hours, were searching for him. They were now walking down past Mrs. Corey's wax museum. Doug stopped.
Bill, look, I never noticed it before. All of those old wax figures in there?
Yeah?
It's strange.
What?
Todd always wanted to be famous, and ever that's a figure of Todd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look at that.
But it wasn't a figure of Todd. It was one of the old figures with the new covering. Todd's skin